Hello and welcome to Take Time. I'm your host, Patrick Marlette, and let's talk watches. This has been a one-year review in the making, and in fact, I've owned this watch 3 times. This is actually the 3rd copy of this watch I have owned, and that watch is the Seiko SRP775. I initially purchased the SRP779, which was the Pepsi bezel black dial face version of the reissued Turtles, and then I wound up buying an SRP-A21, which is the Patty Sunburst Pepsi version of the Turtle. I was very much Pepsi obsessed. And then I finally bought the Gilt dial. I have been wanting to pull the trigger on this watch for the longest time, and I don't know why I didn't just initially buy this version of the watch, because I've actually wanted this version of the watch since these Turtles were reissued. As some of you may know, I've been on a vintage Seiko kick. I've been picking up a lot of late 60s, early 70s vintage Seikos, particularly chronographs, but I've been considering getting the 6306 or the 6309, which is the original Turtle. And the dimensions of that watch and this watch are very, very similar, but I wound up going with this one for numerous reasons. Those reasons, which I'll be going over today, lead me to believe that this is the best dive watch under $500. Yes, you heard me right. I said 500, not 300. And as some of you may know, you can pick this watch up for well under $300. As a matter of fact, I got this J version just shy of $250. Yes, brand new. No, not with a warranty. Does that bother me? Nah. At any rate, gang, before I go into the good and bad of this watch, I want to get some measurements out of the way. This could be bad for some of you. This can be very good for some of you. But the watch measures about 45 millimeters across. It has a lug to lug of approximately 48. The lug width, which is just here, is 22 millimeters, and the watch itself is about 13 millimeters thick. With this Erica original strap, it measures about a little over 15 millimeters thick. That's not so bad. What I'll say is this is a pretty universal size. I've found anything under 50 millimeters is generally good for someone with a 6.5-inch wrist to someone with my size wrist, which is 7.25. Let me go ahead and put it on my wrist so you guys get an idea of what it looks like and the kind of presence it has whilst on the wrist. This thing is, it just looks fantastic on the wrist, and with just a little bit of lift from a NATO or one of these paratrooper straps, it looks really, really good. So here it is on the wrist. I'm giving you a little bit of a distanced shot so you can see how it would look on your person for other people. And while you're admiring it, it looks a little something like this. So as you can tell in the background, there is a bracelet sitting on my table. This actually comes with the watch, and it's still in its wrap, and I'll tell you why in just a moment. But this watch is just great with a number of accessories, and it actually fits really well with this particular strap. I'm not being paid to advertise this strap. I've just been wearing it on this strap for the last month. Now while we're here, why don't I point out some of the bad? And I'm actually physically pointing out some of the bad right now. So this is the bracelet that comes with the watch. Now the SRP Prospects Turtle line come with 2 different types of straps. You can get this bracelet or the rubber strap. The rubber strap literally sets a standard for what rubber strap should be in a watch in the $300 range. It is a fantastic strap. The bracelet, however, is just okay. The end links are solid, the links are solid, but the profile of the links themselves are very flat. It wears well on the wrist, but it's not the most comfortable bracelet I've ever worn. And you know, what do you expect for this price range? The one thing that does bother me, though, is that these end links don't necessarily fit the case that well. There's a little bit of a gap between the end link and the case itself, and I'm sure other people have mentioned it. It isn't a real problem, and it's not a manufacturer error. That's just how these were designed. I don't know why that is, but that is the case. The clasp itself is all right. It's got the top bar and these little push deployant, section over here. It's a stamped stainless steel clasp. What do you expect? and nothing too special. One thing that's neat is that it does come with a dive extension, so if you are a diver, there is that option, and that's good for you. But for your average consumer, it has all the bells and whistles you'd expect. It's pretty fantastic, and it's easy enough to size. If you're used to push-pin links, you'll be able to figure this one out with relative ease. But I would rate that a 7 out of 10, so it's not even that bad, but it's just really not that good. On to the watch. Now, as I've mentioned, this is actually the third watch, third turtle rather, that I've ever owned. And there's some common issues between them. So again, I'm going to continue with some of the bad. The bezel itself is rather tinny, and you actually hear how tinny it is. And it's not, there's a lot of wiggle room here. It does shift from place while you're moving it. It's a 120 click bezel. Not the best bezel in the world. 316L stainless steel case, bezel, aluminum insert. And the crown action on this model is actually pretty good. There have been reported issues, and I've had 2 of these turtles, like I've said before, in the past that have had this sort of gritty turn. The crown action has just a little bit of grit to it. I don't know how else to explain it. It feels like there's sand in there for some reason while you're threading it. This doesn't have that. Is it because it's a J version? I can't rightly say, but honestly, everything else is just as familiar as the K version. It doesn't seem to be any better or worse. As this is the J version, the dial is adorned with the Made in Japan text at the bottom. So if you are a watch snob, you've got a little bit of that there. Everything else about this watch is just like the SRP777, except in gold. Accented in gold. So you've got that bezel insert with gold highlights, you've got the hands with gold, and then of course you've got the chapter ring with gold. And it is awesome. It is so awesome. That's probably my favorite part about this watch. It's very traditional. Like there's a lot of guilty Seiko divers from the 70s. And you know, it's nice to see them bringing this color palette back along with a myriad of different colors for this particular model. I mean, there's a green version, there's the Blue Lagoon version, there's the Patty version, there is a Batman version, there is a version with a red minute hand and a Coke bezel, there is too many to list off, but if you are interested in the turtle, there's definitely a flavor for you. Now let me get to some of the good. I've already been commenting on some of the good, but let me get to the personal good. You're getting an in-house movement here, a 4R36, so you've got a day-date complication off to the right here at the 3 o'clock position, whether you want it or not, sorry. But it's not high beat, so you will see the second hand chugging away there. But still, you get a little bit of an automatic sweep. It's satisfying enough. But it's a tried and true movement. It's very reliable. I've had it in many other Seikos, and I'm enjoying it in this one as well. As I mentioned earlier, the proportions of this watch are pretty much great for any wearer. I found it pairs well with a lot of different straps. I really prefer it on my Uncle Seiko straps, but I felt like rocking it on this Erica's original strap just because I had it lying around and it wasn't getting much use. This is fitted for 22 millimeters, but you can see there's a little bit of a gap there. So these aren't really made to size, but it's close enough, and I enjoy the aesthetic overall with this watch. I will say this wouldn't pair as well with your traditional NATO. It might add a little too much thickness, but because only one piece of fabric is going through there, it doesn't add too much to the overall girth of this watch. Now, to the title of this video, and I'm sure why you're wondering, I consider this the best diver in the $500 category, because there's a lot of competition out there under $500 that have amazing Swiss movements or much more pedigree. Even in the same stable as Seiko, you have the Seiko Sumo, and people would arguably go with that over the Turtle. You have the 6R15 movement, you have a much better bracelet. The clasp is just as crappy, but you have a much better bracelet. And of course you have an original design with that watch, where this is a somewhat faithful reissue. The proportions are a little off from the original, and of course the biggest difference between these two, that being the 6306 or 09, is that the seconds hand is much like the SKX, where the lume pip is at the reverse end as opposed to the lollipop seconds hand of the original. Does that bother me? Not at all. And as a matter of fact, the more I wear this, the more I enjoy the proportions of this watch as opposed to the original. Now, why I would rate this the best diver in the $500 category is, for $250, I bought this strap, I bought a Crafter Blue strap that's coming in, hold for the review. I bought numerous different accessories. As a matter of fact, there are so many aftermarket parts. I could outfit this with a sapphire crystal, a ceramic bezel, you name it. There's something to equip this watch with to make it even better than the competition. And again, all under $500. So if you're like me and you enjoy DIY projects, this is really the perfect dive watch to get into because you can do so much with it. Seiko just gets so much support in the community that there's definitely parts and accessories tailored for you. But right out of the box, stock standard, you get Hardlex crystal, a really great movement, and just an absolutely stunning watch. So I don't have very many complaints about this piece, and honestly, for the price, you really, really can't beat it. I dare you to try. It's funny because, you know, like I said, I've owned 3 versions of this watch for a little over a year, but there hadn't been a period where there was, you know, a month where I just didn't own a turtle. I kept on going back to it, and I realized now I enjoy it so much that I had to have one in my collection. And this one is definitely a lifer for me. I love the 775. I love a good gilt dial, and they execute it very well on here. The gold is a little glossy at times, but it doesn't feel like a traditional diver to begin with. So even though it is modeled after a vintage diver, it has a very modern feel to it. And on the wrist, it's just got such great presence, as you could tell earlier. I think you're gonna make the right choice if you decide to buy this watch. So guys, if you were on the fence about purchasing this watch, well, I think you're in the clear. I know there's a ton of video reviews out there on this piece, but it is ever popular, and I thought to throw my hat in the ring finally on the Seiko Turtle with just a solo review. Gang, if you like this video, a like would be much appreciated. If you enjoy the content I produce, please hit that subscribe button. That's why it's there. Hit the subscribe button. That's why it's there. Also, feel free to share this video with all your watch enthusiast friends if they would like to know a little bit more about the Turtle. I hope this video can help them too. Again, my name is Patrick Marlette, and thank you for the time.